Hello, students. I want to take you to page 107 in your book, where we talk about succession planning. And succession planning and choosing internal candidates is a formal process in which top executives regularly review all managers at or above a certain hierarchical level. These are usually individuals that have high degrees of emotional intelligence. Um, we're looking at both performance and potential and devising developmental plans to really get the most promising candidates, those with high degrees of emotional intelligence, high skill sets, and those that are able to lead the organization without really forcing themselves on employees, but show through example what servant leadership is really about, especially when you're talking about leading change. The implementation of succession planning is often flawed by inadequate, even non existent follow up. Well, that's what they say in the book. We talk about succession planning as grooming the right person for the job, or it could be getting someone who specifically is an individual that can lead an organization through change. Now, when they talk about the implementation of succession planning being flawed by inadequate, even non existent follow up, well, are we really looking at the people that we want to put forward and entrust in them that they will carry on the legacy of what's going to happen down the road? Do you think Steve Jobs thought about that? Did he think about succession planning when he was putting Apple together? So, if we want organizations to take specific steps to develop leaders capable of leading change, we need to come up with structural and design changes that are delayered, I should say delayering, increased span of control, matrix or horizontal structures, and all of these work to develop generalists far earlier in their careers and then place a greater premium on interpersonal competencies. So, if you want to develop leaders that are capable of change, you need to have someone who understands the functionality of the structure, but also really has the experience to understand all the different moving parts in the organization that are going to be affected by change. The other thing that we talk about is explicit international movement. That is assigning managers to work in a non native culture and environment for a significant period of time. So we start, and for those of you that took my course in leading virtual teams, we talked a lot about this, about hiring expatriates. And you need a real good international manager to know what people will work out leading their teams under the direction of the parent company. So we certainly unequivocally need cross-cultural awareness and skills that could be virtual. That can be vital in a culturally diverse environment. The other thing that the book talks about is career mazes. And what's a career maze? It's explicit lateral movements that replace rapid upward functional mobility with a far broader set of experiences. Okay, let's put that in English. Career mazes, explicit lateral movements, replace rapid upward functional mobility with a far broader set of experiences. So what that means is what wasn't working will be working if we get the right person in there that has a lot of experience in the area that we want to go in. Functional blinders are going to be removed. That's important. We can't do same old anymore. We can't be blind to changes that are a result of how employees are going to be responding to those changes. For those leaders that are being developed, general management skills are certainly enhanced, and their commitment to the organization, these new leaders as a whole, is going to be enlarged. Sometimes when you're developing leaders and you're learning new things, you need to go slower to allow greater learning. Listen. Don't just hear, listen to what they have to say. Elaborate on the feedback. So-called fast-track managers often fail to stay in one position long enough to deal with the consequences of their actions and also the reaction of their employees. Learning about and dealing with the consequences of actions require greater length of tenure in a position. Now, if we put theory into practice, okay, successful transformation to occur means that behavioral change requires attention to the behavioral pattern of those at the top of the organization as well as the lower level of employees. That means that information needs to be transparent from the top levels down. You're grooming a new leader, they got to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So their level of understanding, their level of comprehension in a particular area that needs to change, whether that be at the top or the bottom or the middle of the organization, we have to put our focus there. Companies can manage the careers of executives in order to create a continuous stream of leaders. Remember, grooming new leaders from the inside, people that have experience, people that have worked from the trenches, and they're coming up. And they're capable of overseeing and leading effective change. Now, people change. Yeah. Not sometimes the job functions, but people themselves change. We have to understand that as leaders. Successful transformation depends on getting the right people on the bus and getting the wrong people off the bus. This section deals with the processes of selection and removal that are key to step 3 in the change process of this chapter, people alignment. So yeah, you want to be screening for fit. So how do we select the right people as leaders? Individuals are attracted to organizations in part because of their perception that they will fit in. Look on the bottom of 111 in your book. That is, their individual personality matches the perceived personality of the organization. That's culture to culture. That means that your values as a leader match the values and required skill sets that are needed in the organization. One example would be getting the right employee for Disney World. They look for recruits with the right personality, figuring that it can train the appropriate skills after the hire. In putting theory into practice, employees attracted to and selected by the organization in an earlier phase are not necessarily the right employees for the newly defined strategies and goals of the changing organization. So reflect on that for a minute. And that is the end of phase one of today.